Hey, Optimancers, Chris here. So I recently was talking to a member of my Discord named Streknarteth, who gave me a new build for an assassin. Now, I've been working on assassin builds, so this was a particular interest for me. And reading through the build, I think this was something that I really wanted to present to you guys. So I talked to that user, and they were happy with the idea of me presenting it to you. So here is the character idea. So we have a build that is a drow, and our drow spent his early life enjoying a life of shadows, a simple footpad. But he found that his ability to eliminate his foes led him to the life of an assassin. Now, a compatriot of his, who happened to be a bit of a zealot, led him down a dark path, a path of fanaticism, and this path threatened to consume him. Now, our character fought his conscience for a while, but eventually broke free of the evil that was beginning to take him over, and instead just focus on his weapon studies, training to become a master of the blade. And through this training came a life-changing event. He fell in love, and as dark as his heart once was, he found himself being pulled to a life of light. So he turns his life around. He turns his passion for death into a passion for life. Poetry, art, song, dance, and pursuit of knowledge. His specialization in weapon training stops being about killing and starts to be about entertainment. He becomes a master of showmanship and becomes known throughout the city for his friendship, his warmth, and his laughter. He becomes a hero and an icon of the city. But then disaster strikes, and a demon horde invades the city. This invasion is led by a seemingly invincible demon lord. Our character remembers the killer that they once were, and a blade of shadow appears in his hand. Our character locates the demon lord and tracks him like a ghost. And springing upon the great fiend, he becomes a whirlwind of death, and within a few seconds the great fiend is destroyed. Having inflicted an amount of damage that may well have been over 1,000 points within a single round, our foe is vanquished. But how did our character accomplish this? That's the build I'm going to show you today. Welcome to Tree and Monk's Temple. So this is our character, and I'm going to name our character Sommel. That is the name that Streknarteth had given for this character. This character will be Adventure League legal, so this only uses the Player's Handbook and Xanathars. Now the race we're going to choose is Drow. Now it's not necessary that this character is a Drow elf. In fact, any character that gets a bonus to Dexterity and Charisma would work. In fact, I would argue that half-elf might be just as good or better. But the original draft had Dark Elf, and it does work well here. And one of the nice things about this is that 120-foot dark vision. Now, like all elves, we're going to get Trance. We're going to get a bonus proficiency in Perception, which is always great to have. Again, we get 120-foot dark vision with Drow, but we get sunlight sensitivity. So we will have disadvantage on attack rolls and on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight when the target of our attack or whatever we're trying to perceive is in direct sunlight. We're going to get bonus magic with this character. So with Drow, you get the Dancing Lights cantrip for free. When you get to 3rd level, you're going to get Fairy Fire that you can cast once per day. And when you get to 5th level, you can cast a Darkness spell once per day. In all those cases, Charisma is our casting stat, and that's good. This will be a Charisma-based character. So with our ability scores, I'm going to recommend a point buy. I will say this build was presented to me using the standard array, and the idea with a standard array is you put your highest in dexterity, then into strength, then into charisma, and then arrange the rest as you want. What I think is that if we use a point buy, we can get that charisma to a starting score of 16. And in terms of playability of this character, I mean, not at the 20th level mark, but throughout the career of this character, I think that higher charisma is going to pay off for us. It's going to give us more uses of Bardic Inspiration. It's going to give us a better spell DC. So I think it's worth investing in that 16 charisma to begin with. Now, another option would be if we're willing to accept a lower charisma, which we can do with this character, we could get that constitution score to 12. So that's going to be a matter of personal preference. But as I'm going to present it today, I'm going to stick with the constitution of 12, get that charisma score starting to 16. You can see we have a starting dexterity score of 17. That's where we want that to be. Now, the way we're going to start this character is with Rogue. And we're going to begin with 3 levels of Rogue, and you're just going to play it as a standard Rogue. But we're going to get 3 levels, and that's going to get us into Assassin. We're going to get 4 starting skill proficiencies. I'm going to recommend Acrobatics, Athletics, Intimidation, and Sleight of Hand. Then we're going to go back into our description, and we are going to select our background. And in this case, the background, we're just going to be simple. It's criminal. That's going to give us proficiency in the deception and stealth skills. Then we are going to choose a gaming set and a tool proficiency. And it doesn't matter what you pick here. I'm going to pick a playing card set, and I'm going to pick alchemist supplies. But it doesn't matter. You can choose whatever you like there. Going back into our class, we're going to pick expertise in 2 skills, and that's why I wanted to do background first, because we're going to want expertise in stealth, and then I would recommend an expertise in perception. Then we're going to pick our roguish archetype, and we will pick assassin. Now, what assassin is going to give us here? Assassin is one of those subclasses that I don't think works all that well for a straight classed rogue build, but I do think it can work well for a multi-class build. We're going to get a bonus proficiency with Disguise Kit and Poisoner's Kit, and then we are going to get the Assassinate ability. This is important for this build. Starting at the 3rd level, you are at deadliest when you get the drop on your enemies. You have advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn in the combat yet. In addition, any hit you score against a creature that is surprised is a critical hit. This is kind of central to the build, and it can be difficult to get surprise in a party situation. And that is a limitation here. But if you are tracking a certain enemy, your party will do well to let you get an ambush on them and get that surprise and get all those critical hits, because this character is largely built around that. Remember, as you're playing your character, you will also have Cunning Action, which is one of the strongest abilities a rogue gets. Starting at 2nd level, you can use your bonus action to take the dash, disengage, or hide action. This is a good way for a low-level rogue to get advantage on an attack roll. It's also a good way for a rogue to do some skirmishing so that they can go into melee, make an attack, and get back out. With our starting equipment, I'd probably start with a rapier and a short bow and a burglar's pack. At some point, I'd probably look to go to 2 short swords instead of the rapier, and I would certainly look to get studded leather armor instead of leather armor. I'm not going to go into too much detail what happens at 3rd level. This is pretty much your standard rogue. We have a good dexterity. When we can, we would use 2-weapon fighting in melee. That's the best damage we can get, is to do 2 short swords. And of course, remember, we don't get our dexterity bonus on the offhand weapon. The main purpose of that is to give you that second chance of inflicting your sneak attack. But if we are at range and we're using our hand crossbow and we need to switch quickly to a weapon, we may want to draw our rapier because we can't draw 2 short swords with the same object interaction. So this is the point then where we will move away from Rogue. And the next class we're going to take is Paladin. We're going to take 2 levels of Paladin. Now, when it comes to role-playing, remember that Paladins have a certain divine quality to them, but until we get to level 3, there's no oath. So we're not really looking to make this character an oath-style Paladin because we're not going to get to level 3. We're just going to be taking 2 levels of Paladin. Now we're going to pick up a fighting style here. And I think the obvious one for us to take is dueling. That's going to give us a +2 damage when we're using 1 weapon. So this is a point where then I would switch back to using just the rapier. And we can pick up a shield at this point and then get that bonus to our armor class. So as a paladin, we're going to get Divine Sense. This is going to help us locate things like fiends within 60 feet of us. And this is basically a free thing to do. We can do it a number of times equal to 1 plus our charisma modifier, and using it doesn't interfere with any of our other resources. Lay on Hands is a great ability paladins get, and even if you only dip paladin for 1 or 2 levels, it's still a good ability because not only can you use it and deliver 1 hit point of healing up to 10 times with 2 levels of paladin, but we can also do things like neutralize poisons and cure diseases with it. We're also going to get some spell casting. That comes with our second level of Paladin. So let's look at those spells right now. So we're going to get 4 prepared spells, and then we can cast up to 2 of them in a day. The first one I would definitely take is Bless. Bless is going to give a bonus D4 to hit and to saving throws of up to 3 players. We're not concentrating on anything else at this point, so this is a good choice for us. The second choice I'm going to make is Wrathful Smite. I think this is another really good choice for us, and it works nicely in combination with Assassin. This is going to use our bonus action, and then over the next minute, anytime we hit with a melee weapon, attack deals extra 1d6 psychic damage. Psychic damage is a great kind of damage because almost nothing is resistant or immune to it. And then if the target is a creature, it makes a wisdom saving throw or it's frightened of us until the spell ends. As an action, the creature can make a wisdom save against your spell DC to end the spell. So regardless of whether they make their save or not, they're going to take some extra damage. But if they fail their saving throw, then that creature is either going to remain frightened or they're going to have to use their action as a minimum of 1 action to get rid of the Wrathful Smite. The final 2 choices are probably not ones I'm going to cast very much. I'm probably going to stick with Bless and Wrathful Smite. So I would look for more circumstantial things. I could see Shield of Faith being useful, and I could see Protection from Evil and Good being useful. Going into our class abilities, then this is the reason why we're going to take Paladin, is for Divine Smite. So starting at 2nd level, when you hit a creature with a melee weapon attack, you can expend 1 spell slot to deal radiant damage to a target in addition to the weapon's damage. Extra damage is 2d8 for 1st level slot, plus d8 for each level higher than 1st, to a maximum of 5d8. And if the target is undead or a fiend, they get an additional d8 damage. So when do we want to use a Divine Smite? Whenever we score a critical. That is always the time you want to use your Divine Smite because they do cost that spell slot, so they're not cheap to do. But when you score a critical, you're going to get double damage from that Divine Smite. And if that creature is a fiend or undead, remember, it'll be double and increased damage with that Divine Smite. And remember, as an assassin, if we successfully surprise a foe, our hits are treated as critical hits. So those should all be smite attacks, and it makes Paladin and Assassin, although they're not intuitively combined in terms of actual synergy, they work exceptionally well together. So to a large degree, this is still going to play like a rogue, except we now have some spell options, and a lot of those spell options can increase our damage. Wrathful Smite can increase our damage and create the Frightened condition. Bless is going to give us a bonus to hit, which will increase our damage. And then we can use Smites that would increase our damage. But those are all limited because we only have 2 spell slots. Lay on Hands also gives this character a little bit of healing. But for the most part, it's still going to play as a rogue. So then we're going to multiclass out of that into Fighter. And we are going to take Fighter for 3 levels. Now 3 levels of Fighter is going to give us another fighting style. We already have Dueling, remember. So this is a good time for us to grab Defense. We already have Dueling, remember. So this is a good time for us to grab Defense. That's going to increase our armor class. Second Wind is another healing technique. Now we can use that to heal ourselves using a bonus action. Action Surge, of course, is a big deal. Every short rest, we can use it to basically take an extra action on our turn. Now, at this point, what I consider maybe a good option is maybe using it to set up something like a Bless spell. But if we are in a situation where we have surprised our enemy, we definitely want to use Action Surge so that we can make an extra critical attack. And the martial archetype we want to take here is Battlemaster. Now, Battlemaster will give us an additional tool proficiency. And again, doesn't matter what you take here. We actually have quite a few tool proficiencies. We have Thieves' Tools, we have Poisoner's Kit, we have Disguise Kit, we have Alchemist Supplies. So we'll grab something else on there. Let's grab Leatherworker's Tools. The reason we're taking Battlemaster is for combat superiority. So when we choose this archetype at 3rd level, we're going to get maneuvers of our choice and 4 superiority dice. So we are going to choose 3 maneuvers, and we are going to have 4 d8 superiority dice to fuel those maneuvers. And part of the advantage here is remember that a lot of these maneuvers will add the superiority die to your damage roll. So if it is a critical, then you would be adding 2d8 to the damage. So we're going to select 3 maneuvers, and the maneuvers I'm going to recommend is, first off, let's take Riposte. Riposte is really nice for characters with sneak attack because it gives us a chance to potentially make a second sneak attack in the same round by using an opportunity attack. The second one I recommend is Precision Attack. So Precision Attack, the advantage there is that when we make an attack roll against a creature, should we happen to miss, we can use our precision attack to potentially make it a hit. Now, precision attack does not add to your damage, but if you're going to miss, you're not doing any damage, so it's still well worth the superiority die to make sure you hit. And the final maneuver I'm going to recommend is Menacing Attack. When you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can expend 1 superiority die to attempt to frighten the target. You add the superiority die to the attack's damage roll. That is necessary for any maneuver you choose here. So if you don't want Menacing Attack, make sure you get that. And the target must make a Wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, it's frightened of us until the end of our next turn. So as we look at our character at this point, we are now an 8th level character. We haven't had a single ability score improvement. We still have only 1 attack per round. We don't have a whole lot of spell casting, but we do have a lot of interesting options in combat. We have our Assassinate ability. We have Sneak Attack. We have Cunning Action. We have Wrathful Smite. We have Bless. And now we have all our Battle Master maneuvers as well. So there is a lot of things that we can do in combat, although I wouldn't say that this character is overly powerful at this point. So finally, we go into our last class, and this one we're going to take for the rest of the career of this character, and that's Bard. Now we are going to take a full 12 levels of Bard here. So obviously with 12 levels, we're going to get all kinds of things. First thing we're going to get is we're going to get an additional skill proficiency and a musical instrument proficiency. The musical instrument doesn't matter. For this character, I'm just going to give them a lute. And then we're going to get 1 additional skill. I would go with either performance or persuasion. I think persuasion maybe comes up a little more. Very important to this choice, bards are full spellcasters, so we will get full spellcasting progression over these 12 levels. And when it comes to spell slots, what we're going to be doing is using the multi-class rules. So we will be taking 12 levels of bard and then those 2 levels of paladin, and we get half our paladin levels. So in the end, this character will cast as a 13th level caster in terms of spell slots, which means we will have a 7th level slot available. We are going to get Bardic Inspiration. We're going to begin with 3 d6 Bardic Inspiration dice, and as we increase at 5th level, we're going to get to d8, and at 10th level, we're going to get to d10. This will be once every long rest at 1st level, but once we get to 5th level, we'll be able to do it every short rest. Jack of all trades, I think, is an underrated ability. Starting at 2nd level, we can add half our proficiency bonus rounded down to any ability check we make that doesn't already include our proficiency bonus. This includes things like our initiative rolls. It includes things like dispel magic rolls, and any skill, any tool we're not proficient in, we can get half our proficiency modifier. Song of Rest is going to make you popular with the rest of the party because they're going to get additional healing when they take a short rest. It's going to begin with a d6, but it will get up to a d10 when we get to 9th level. Now we're going to select our Bardic College, and the one we're going to pick for this build is College of Swords. Now College of Swords gives us a fighting style at 3rd level, and we already have dueling, and 2-weapon fighting is probably not something we're using all the time, but we might use 2-weapon fighting, and those are our only 2 options, so 2-weapon fighting is our better choice here. The main thing we're getting at 3rd level is our Blade Flourish, so now we can use our inspiration dice to make our attacks better. We can have 3 options: a defensive flourish. We can expend 1 use of our Bardic Inspiration to cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target we hit. The damage equals the number you roll on the Bardic Inspiration die, and you add the number to your AC until the start of your next turn. I think this is the best flourish of the 3. Slashing Flourish allows us to do a little bit of extra damage to other creatures besides the one we hit, and Mobile Flourish allows us to do some movement in addition to an attack. So the slashing and mobile, they're both circumstantially good, but Defensive Flourish, I'd say, is the best of the 3, and on a round-by-round basis, Defensive Flourish is probably the one I would do. At 3rd level as a bard, we're going to get expertise in 2 additional skills. Remember, we already have expertise in stealth and perception. So with this character, what I'm going to suggest is expertise in acrobatics and athletics. This is really going to boost our things like our ability to climb, our ability to balance, our ability to jump. All these things are going to be significantly better by having expertise in these two skills. So at 4th level of Bard, we're now a 12th level character. We're actually going to get our first ability score improvement. And we're going to take a feat here, and the feat is going to be Elven Accuracy. So what Elven Accuracy does is basically when you attack with advantage, you're going to be rolling 3 dice instead of 2. And it's going to allow us to increase our dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. And we're going to improve our dexterity because we had started with a 17 dexterity, and that brings us up to an 18. At 5th level, we'll be regaining our combat inspiration on a short rest, and that is going to be very nice to have because we have 3 bardic inspiration dice. We can use them on defensive flourishes. Getting them back on a short rest means we're probably going to have double to triple the number of defensive flourishes that we were able to do before. At 6th level, and frankly, there are probably ways we could do this build to get this earlier, and that would be good, but we would be delaying other things we really want. But one thing I could see doing with this character is taking the fighter levels at the end to get this extra attack earlier, but that wasn't the build I was presented. I wanted to stick with the build that I was presented, but if I was to revise this build, I would consider that, just so we could get extra attack earlier. Because starting at 6th level, we can attack twice instead of once whenever we take the attack action on our turn. That is going to be a huge offensive boost for this character. Then at 6th level, we get Counter Charm, which is not a very good ability. Then we're going to get an ability score improvement at 8th level of Bard. And what we want to do here is we want to get our dexterity up to 20. So with the dexterity of 20, we now have the maximum chance we can have to hit and the maximum bonus to damage. And since we're wearing light armor, it's also going to help our armor class, and it's going to help our initiative score. And initiative, of course, is important for assassins because it can give us an advantage on those first round of attack rolls. And we do have Elven Accuracy to work with that. At 10th level, we get even more expertise. So we have tons of expertise now. We have expertise in stealth, perception, athletics, acrobatics. I figure it's a good time to take some social skills. So I'm going to recommend persuasion and deception. Now you could throw intimidation in there instead of persuasion or deception, but I just kind of figured that with the background I presented as a hypothetical for this character, persuasion and deception probably are a better fit. Now before I go into the magical secrets and the ability score improvement, the final one, let's get into our spells. We are going to have 12 casting levels to choose from here. Now the cantrips don't matter that much because we're probably not going to be using them a lot. But I do like prestidigitation, especially if this character is going to be doing some entertaining. That fits nicely with that, as does minor illusion. Mage Hand can just be useful. And then I'm going to throw the Friends cantrip on there as well. Now for first level spells for this character, what we're going to do is we're going to take Healing Word just because that's a useful bonus action we can do, especially if a party member has gone down. But also to save our spell slots, we're going to take Comprehend Languages because it's a ritual spell, so we can cast it without using a spell slot. For second level spells, I'm going to take 2 spells. I'm going to begin with Blindness, Deafness. This is a spell we can use that can debuff our enemies. When we first get it, we're going to have 3rd level slots, but no 3rd level spells. Blindness, Deafness also upcasts nicely. The other one I'm going to take is Silence. I think that fits nicely with an assassin build, especially if we're going up against something that is a spellcaster. I'm going to take 2 3rd level spells. The first one I'm going to take is Dispel Magic. Dispel Magic gets advantage from our Jack of all trades ability, so we're better at casting it than another member of the party would be. And I'm going to take Lehman's Tiny Hut, very useful spell, and it's going to be a ritual, so it's not going to use up any of our spell slots. With 4th level spells, I'm going to take 3 different spells here. First one I'm going to take is Dimension Door. When you need Dimension Door, you really need Dimension Door. Very good spell to have. Greater Invisibility, I think, is fantastic on an assassin character because it's going to give us advantage on our attack rolls, and we are taking advantage of our Elven Accuracy with that. Qualifies us for sneak attack, etc. And then the final one I'm going to take is Locate Creature, just because this character, as an assassin, I think Locate Creature is something that could come up. So with 5th level spells, I'm going to take 2 selections. The first is going to be Greater Restoration. Not a spell I'm going to need all the time, but when you need it, you really need it. The second one I'm going to take is Animate Objects. It's just going to give me a way of boosting my damage in combat. And this character doesn't have all that many things he needs to do with his bonus action. So Animate Objects doesn't conflict too much with other things. Then we're going to select two 6th-level selections. And the ones I'm going to take are Mass Suggestion, a really good spell. Doesn't use concentration. Affects many creatures. And then I am going to take True Seeing, just in case this character is hunting somebody and maybe they're going up against magical darkness, illusions, that kind of thing. True Seeing could be very helpful, and it doesn't use concentration. Now we are going to save our last 2 known spells for our magical secrets. And this is what I recommend for your magical secrets. The first spell I'm going to recommend for magical secrets is Shadow Blade. So this character is going to rely on using Shadow Blade, and we are going to upcast that spell. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. The second thing I'm going to select is Steel Wind Strike. Again, this for this kind of character works very well, and I will show you that. So with Shadow Blade, this is a concentration spell. We can create a weapon that does 2d8 psychic damage on a hit. It's light, it qualifies for sneak attack, but what we can do is we can use a higher level slot to upcast this spell. This character now has a 7th level slot. If we use a 7th level slot on Shadow Blade, the damage of Shadow Blade becomes 5d8. And its psychic damage, again, almost nothing is immune to that. So we can combine Shadow Blade of 5d8 plus our extra attack plus our action surge. We can get a lot of damage together in one round before we talk about things like sneak attack and smite and battle maneuvers and flourishes. And the second one I recommend is Steel Wind Strike, because Steel Wind Strike just happens to work exceptionally well with Assassin. You flourish the weapon used in casting and then vanish to strike like the wind. Choose up to 5 creatures you can see within range. Make a melee spell attack against each target. On a hit, a target takes 6d10 force damage. Now, just keep in mind, if you are an assassin, if you get the jump on a bunch of creatures, you will be getting advantage on all those attacks, and all those attacks are going to deal criticals if they hit. Every attack should hit, because we're talking about attacking with elven accuracy. So because they all become criticals, we're looking at 12d10 force damage to 5 different targets. So again, that just combines very nicely with Assassin. And unlike Shadow Blade, this one isn't going to be using up our concentration. This is also a 5th level slot, so we can cast it multiple times. And that brings us to our final ability score improvement. And this one is going to seem super counterintuitive. But we're going to take a feat, and that feat, you're not going to guess it, it's Great Weapon Master. And the reason we want Great Weapon Master is just for one ability, and it's this one. On your turn, when you score a critical hit with a melee weapon, reduce a creature to 0 hit points with 1. You can make 1 melee weapon attack as a bonus action. This character can get automatic critical hits, which means it can get an automatic melee weapon attack as a bonus action. So it's an additional attack around for this feat. So we won't be using the -5 to hit plus 10 damage with Great Weapon Master. We won't even be using it with a heavy weapon. We're going to be using it with our Shadow Blade. So this is how the damage breaks down, and this is straight from Streknarteth's message to me. The simple stuff first. 25 from hitting 5 attacks with the dexterity of 20, giving Sommel a modifier of +5. 10 from hitting 5 attacks with the dueling fighting style. 2d6 from sneak attack. 48 from Battle Master, that's our 4 maneuvers, and then 4 superiority dice, and 1d10 from the Bardic Flourish. Now for the bigger numbers. 25d8 from hitting 5 attacks with the Shadow Blade, and 30d8 from using Divine Smite on each of the attacks using a 4th level or higher spell slot every time. Since every hit is a critical due to the Assassin feature, any dice rolls are rolled a second time. This means the final damage is 35 plus 46 plus 8d8 plus 2d10 plus 50d8 plus 60d8. So that's 124 dice, by the way, that you would be rolling. The absolute minimum damage possible is 159, and the maximum damage possible, 1,023 points of damage. So is this just a trick character, a way to get potentially up to 1,000 points of damage in the perfect situation? Well, I would say this is a reasonable character. Look how many skills this character has expertise in. Acrobatics score plus 17, athletics plus 13, deception plus 15, perception plus 11, persuasion plus 15, stealth plus 17. We have multiple attacks every round. They're decent attacks. We can add all kinds of things to damage. We have a reasonable amount of spellcasting. Overall, I'd say this is a reasonable character. Now, the weaknesses here, I think, number one is our hit points. Our hit points are not great. Number two, our constitution modifier is a +1, and we're going to be concentrating on some spells. This is largely a character that's going to be really effective in that first round of combat, but potentially vulnerable after that first round is done. But if you are looking for a character that really focuses on assassination, doing damage on the first round is what it's all about. The idea is to get in quick, finish off your enemy, and get out. And for that, this character is very effective. So that is the Drow Shadowblade Assassin. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, Optimancers. See you next time.